Hello, welcome to this news event held by the law firm Pifer Wolf, Carr, Kane, Conway, and Wise, or Pifer Wolf for short. You'll be hearing from 7 speakers today, and then we'll open the floor for questions during the Q&A period. The Q&A period will be for reporters only, and if you wish to ask a question, you can use the raise your hand function, and your line will be unmuted when it's your turn to ask a question. For more info, you can go to sexualassaultvictimadvocates.com, where you can find the news release, court filings, and more. And we're going to drop a direct link to the news release in the chat window as well, so you can get it. So as I mentioned, you'll be hearing from 7 speakers today. First will be Adam Wolf, partner at Pifer Wolf. Second, Tracy Cowan, partner at Pifer Wolf. Third, Stella Grant, a Lyft driver and physical assault victim from Chicago. Fourth, Stuart Berman, a Lyft driver and physical assault victim from Wilton, Connecticut. Fifth, Catherine Rasta, a Lyft passenger and sexual assault survivor from Phoenix, Arizona. Sixth, Amy Collins, a Lyft driver and sexual assault survivor from Napa, California. And last, Erica Garcia Galicia, a Lyft driver and sexual assault survivor from Wilmington, California. So let's go ahead and start with our first speaker, Adam Wolf, partner at Pifer Wolf.
Thank you, Max, and welcome to this news conference. My name is Adam Wolf, and I'm a partner at the law firm Pifer Wolf, Carr, Kane, Conway, and Wise, or Pifer Wolf for short. Today, we filed 17 lawsuits and arbitrations against the rideshare company Lyft on behalf of our clients, some of whom you'll be hearing from today. Let me begin by emphasizing the scope of the problem we're here to discuss. And let me be clear, Lyft has created a national crisis. In addition to those sharing their stories publicly, 12 additional survivors and victims also filed lawsuits and arbitrations against Lyft, but wish to keep their stories private. Our 12 additional clients include 10 passengers who were sexually assaulted in Lyft rides in California, Ohio, Kentucky, Oregon, Virginia, Texas, and Wisconsin. A passenger who was physically assaulted in a Lyft ride in Michigan, and a Lyft driver who was physically assaulted in Illinois. But quite frankly, this is happening everywhere. In every state Lyft operates, and it can and will happen wherever Lyft is operating, because this systemic failure, it cuts to the very core of how Lyft does business. As early as 2015, Lyft became aware that its drivers and passengers were being sexually assaulted, physically attacked, raped, and even murdered while using the Lyft application. Lyft knows of countless complaints by Lyft passengers who have been attacked by Lyft drivers and Lyft drivers who have been attacked by Lyft passengers. Combined with the numerous criminal investigations of these incidents by law enforcement, there is no question that Lyft is fully aware of the continuing attacks and dangers posed to those using its platform. But Lyft's response to this crisis, it's been appalling. Lyft continues to hire drivers without performing adequate background checks and continues to allow culpable drivers to keep driving with Lyft. Lyft refuses to terminate all riders with safety complaints and hides these complaints from other Lyft drivers. Most importantly, Lyft has failed to adopt and implement reasonable driver monitoring procedures designed to protect the safety of its drivers and passengers alike. As a consequence, Lyft users continue to be the victims of sexual assaults and rapes. It's unconscionable that Lyft has been aware of the ongoing problem for years and done virtually nothing. Lyft spends massive amounts of money on woke marketing messages and lobbying, but it refuses to protect its drivers and passengers. In reality, the thing Lyft is margins. Thank you. That concludes my statement. I look forward to your questions during the Q&A period.
Thank you. That was Adam Wolf, partner at Pifer Wolf. His video was a little choppy. If you missed any of it, we can address that during the Q&A. Let's go ahead and proceed to our second speaker, Tracy Cowan, partner at Piper Wolf.
Thank you, Max. And thank you everyone for joining this news event. My name is Tracy Cowan, and I'm also a partner at Piper Wolf. Lyft has a responsibility to protect its passengers and drivers, period. Its refusal to do so has resulted in acts of violence that have left our clients with disabilities, permanent deformities, and lifelong trauma. Yet, as you'll hear, Lyft is not only failing to provide reasonable protection for its users, but even after assaults occur, Lyft ignores, minimizes, or downright stonewalls the victim's efforts to report the incident and get help. Even today, Lyft operates without any real meaningful driver screening. Once an applicant becomes a driver, Lyft fails to consistently use its own technology to monitor rides. Lyft fails to consistently make an alert if the driver diverts substantially from the correct route or fails to reach the destination, either of which can be a sign of a physical or sexual attack. And most importantly, Lyft fails to require its own in-car cameras and dash cams. Cameras should be in working order during the entire ride for every single ride to keep everyone in the car safe. Lyft does not have a zero tolerance policy for sexual misconduct and has allowed drivers reported for misconduct to continue driving. That's right, drivers who Lyft knows are a danger to passengers, predators, are still allowed to drive for Lyft. Appallingly, there are even online forums where rideshare users openly discuss and brag about access to women. Worse, there are open discussions about how to get laid or get girls' interests during Lyft rides. Lyft has also failed to protect its drivers from carjackings and other physical and sexual assaults committed by passengers. And this is an occurrence that is frighteningly common. The refusal to institute dash cam surveillance in all vehicles and real-time tracking of all rides results in drivers being held hostage, or worse, by their often intoxicated passengers. Lyft claims that its drivers can decline any ride they like, but Lyft consistently refuses to give drivers the information they need to avoid a dangerous ride. Lyft does nothing to allow the drivers to verify the identity of the riders in the car, and even lets account holders arrange trips for acquaintances who have absolutely no information on file in the event of attack. Lyft also refuses to allow drivers to see prior complaints about riders who they've been assigned to pick up, and even deletes the contents of the driver's complaints in subsequent communications about a given incident. Lyft also often obstructs law enforcement efforts after an attack has been reported, refusing to cooperate without a court order, despite knowing that many police precincts will drop charges if information is not readily provided. This allows sexual and violent predators to get away with crimes, and it inhibits survivors from taking legal action to protect themselves, such as seeking protective orders against their assailants. Lyft has long known of the many attacks that have taken place in connection with Lyft rides, but publicly, Lyft has consistently failed to exhibit transparency about the rate of physical and sexual violence on its platform. In 2021, Lyft released its very first community safety report about the prevalence of violence and sexual assault on the platform. Lyft reported 4,158 sexual assaults between 2017 and 2019. However, the report was woefully inadequate and designed to obscure safety issues rather than reveal them. In the report, Lyft noted that it had information regarding non-fatal instances of physical violence, yet intentionally failed to quantify or describe the nature of these attacks. Instead, it merely stated that 10 of those attacks resulted in death. Given that Lyft has the information about the true incidence of violent crime on the platform, but made the calculated decision not to disclose it, the logical conclusion is that revealing the true prevalence of physical violence during Lyft rides would harm the company's bottom line. The report also indicates that Lyft's safety policies and procedures are simply not working, as it revealed a 65% increase in sexual assault in 2019. Before I conclude, I want to thank the survivors and victims here today. Nothing can undo the pain and suffering they've endured, but it's their hope that by sharing their stories, they can make Lyft hear them, force Lyft to protect its users, and drastically reduce the number of violent and sexual attacks during Lyft rides in the future. Thank you. That's the end of my statement. I look forward to taking your questions.
Thank you. Again, that was Tracy Cowan, partner at Piper Wolf. Let's proceed to our third speaker, Stella Grant, a Lyft driver and physical assault victim from Chicago.
Hi, everyone. My name is Stella Grant. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. I'm a mother of two fantastic boys. Early on during the pandemic, I lost my job like many others, and I needed to find something to quickly do to support my family and pay the bills. A friend of mine suggested I should look into driving for Lyft, so I signed up and I started driving. That turns out to be a mistake of my life. Things started off well, but about a year ago, my life changed forever just because of that decision. So on August 30th of last year, I received a ride request, just like any other rides I've received in the past. I accepted it and I drove to the location. When I arrived at the location, I found out that the person who ordered the ride wasn't the one that was going to board the ride. This happened pretty much often, so when you drive for Lyft. So I tried to at least confirm the name of the person and her identity so I can start driving. The person really got mad because I was trying to do a normal confirmation just to make sure I'm picking up the right person. So she became mad with me and she started abusing me. It was pretty clear that she was intoxicated. So she quickly began like abusing me verbally and physically. She was really violent with me while I was driving. She cursed at me and punched me in the head, my face, my back. And I tried to call the police in Chicago. While I was calling 911, the passenger then forced her way into the front of my car and she grabbed the steering and she caused the car to like swipe around, and the car hit something and my mirror was, the mirror of the passenger side was smashed. As I was trying to get control back of my car so we're not going to crash into a big accident or something, I was scared for my life and hers too. She hit me with an object in my lips and my face. So I started bleeding. Blood was just gushing out everywhere. I had to wait after I got control of the car and I got help to go to the emergency room. I still have terrible pain in my back that keeps me from doing my job on most days. The doctor recommends me having physical therapy, but I cannot afford that because I don't have the money right now. And that incident has not only left me with a back pain, it has also left me with a terrible scar in my lip. And I still suffer from anxiety just because of that, what happened to me that night. The whole incident, like I said, has affected me not only physically, it has also affected me financially and mentally, even emotionally. I'm scared to go out to drive for Lyft because I'm afraid of being attacked again by a passenger like that. I can't bring myself to do driving anymore, and I don't know what I'm going to do to provide for my two boys. It's been hard for me. I have decided today to share this story because I want people out there to know what has happened, because this has not stopped. It keeps happening, and it's going to happen over and over again until something is done by Lyft to fix this problem. I want to thank everyone for listening to me. Thank you. And that's the end of my statement today. Thank you so much.
Thank you again. That was Stella Grant, a Lyft driver and physical assault victim from Chicago. Let's go to our fourth speaker, Stuart Berman, a Lyft driver and physical assault victim from Wilton, Connecticut. Go ahead, Stuart.
Hello, my name is Stuart Berman, and I was a Lyft driver in the Stamford area of Connecticut. For those that don't know where that is, it's about 1 hour from New York City. Like most Lyft drivers, I've had some interesting people and some passengers who were pretty bad, but nothing like the one that got in my car on September 17th of last year. During the ride, the passenger was on the phone most of the trip. It was pretty obvious that it was a heated conversation, lots of yelling and screaming. All of a sudden, that just a minute or two after, away from his final destination, the rider screamed at me, "Pull over, bad word," unquote, and left and started to punch me before I could even figure out what was happening. The rider unloaded on me terribly. Totally unprepared, he started punching me in the face and head repeatedly, over and over and over. I thought he was going to kill me. But eventually he jumped out of the car and ran. That was when I called the police. When they showed up, they took me to the emergency room at the hospital, where they found that he had broken my nose and caused a brain bleed in my head. When Lyft found out about all of this, they advised me that they put $750 into my account. $750, nothing else. In order to stop the bleed inside my skull, the doctors needed to perform brain surgery. It was actually took 2 brain surgeries to try and get things properly placed. As a result of the assault, my brain shifted in my skull, because of the bleed. The doctors took me off the blood thinner, which resulted in a blood clot in my abdomen. I had to undergo physical therapy for walking and balance skills. And to this day, I'm still unable to walk or climb stairs normally. Now I have a large, prominent scar in my head due to the surgery. That also serves as a constant reminder the assault that I received. In addition to the physical injury and ongoing recovery, I've been suffering from severe anxiety. Mentally, I haven't yet returned to normal. Now in public, I always sit with my back against the wall. I do the same in elevators. If I can't get into the rear of the elevator, I wait for the next car. If I see a man walking towards me, I step aside, letting him pass me and watching him very closely. I am here to tell you that Lyft must do way more to prevent these types of incidents from happening. They need to train drivers on how to deal with the stuff. Lyft must protect us. Lyft must protect us. They need to also to make this right, or to just going to keep, this will just keep going to happen. Thank you. That is the end of my statements.
Thank you. Again, that was Stuart Berman, a Lyft driver and physical assault victim from Wilton, Connecticut. We'll go to our fifth speaker now, Catherine Rasta, a Lyft passenger and sexual assault survivor from Phoenix. Go ahead, Catherine.
Hello, my name is Catherine Rasta. I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. I hope by sharing my story today, I can bring attention to the problems at Lyft. And more importantly, I hope I can help prevent Lyft users from being assaulted in the future. On June 26th of last year, I ordered a Lyft to catch a ride home after spending the night out with some friends. I honestly didn't think twice about it. It was supposed to be a fun night out with friends, and the next morning turned into one of the worst days of my life. As soon as I got into the car, I knew something was wrong. When I looked at the front seat, I saw the driver staring at me in the rearview mirror. Then he began to ask me weird questions like, "Do you party?" When I told him no, surprisingly, he said he wanted to get a hotel room with me, smoke crystal meth, and have sex. I was immediately shocked and scared. As a survivor of a sexual assault as a child, I have severe PTSD. I told him I have a boyfriend, which is where I was going to. And then I asked him to not ask me anything about that again. That didn't stop him. I tried to ignore him for the entire ride, staring out the side window, but he continued with his sexual advances. When we pulled up to my boyfriend's house, the driver locked the doors, turned around, and grabbed my phone and sexually assaulted me. He kept his hands on me as he put his number in my phone, called it to make sure he had my number. Then he told me, "This is our little secret. Don't tell anyone. Remember, I know where you live, and I know where your friends live now. I doubt you want any trouble, right?" He waited for me to respond. I said, "Okay, I won't say anything." I was terrified at this point and on the verge of tears, like I am now. Then he threw my phone at me, and he blew a kiss at me and unlocked the doors and let me out. When I got into my boyfriend's apartment, I ran to the bathroom and I threw up. I kept thinking about what he said. If I said anything, he would come find me. When I finally got the courage to contact Lyft and tell him what happened, they said they would disable his account. No follow-up, nothing. They never got back to me. I felt like they didn't even care what happened to me, and I didn't matter. Since then, I've moved into a different house. I changed my number just so he wouldn't find me. But that doesn't make me feel any better. He's still out there. I hope by sharing my story, I can make Lyft understand how this impacted me and how dangerous this platform is. Lyft needs to invest in more safety features like dash cams to record the rides. Sexual abuse in Lyft rides needs to stop. What happened to me should not happen to anyone. We all deserve a safe ride experience. Nobody should go through the trauma that still haunts me today. Thank you, and that's the end of my statement.
Again, that was Catherine Rasta, a Lyft passenger and sexual assault survivor from Phoenix. Let's go to our sixth speaker, Amy Collins, a Lyft driver and sexual assault survivor from Napa, California. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Amy Collins and I'm from Napa, California. As difficult as this is, I know it's really important for me to speak up and make my voice heard. It's time for Lyft to take responsibility for the safety of its users so no one else has to go through what I experienced. Late at night on March 1st, 2020, I picked up an intoxicated male passenger, and what happened next not only traumatized me mentally and emotionally, but it brought up trauma from my past. I haven't felt right since, and I'm not sure I ever will. The ride was immediately uncomfortable. The passenger began making advances and inappropriate gestures about my body and comments. He started caressing my arms. I tried to verbally and physically get him to stop, but he pressed himself against my seat and began groping me. When I resisted, he wrapped his hands around my neck, choking me and continuing to grope me until we reached the destination. I was paralyzed with fear. I couldn't reach my phone to contact the police because the passenger was pressing his full body weight against me as I was driving on the highway. Now, I rarely leave the house. I'm distant from my friends and loved ones. I even bought a new car because the old one was a daily reminder of the assault. Lyft provided zero training on how to handle situations like this, and I didn't learn about my rights as a driver until later I came across a Facebook group for Lyft drivers. I developed depression and stopped working for weeks. All I wanted to do was curl up in bed and stay there because I felt so dirty and ashamed about what had happened. It all brought up past trauma from 10 years ago that I thought I had worked through. It reopened my fear, depression, anxiety, and anger once again. I still don't sleep well at night. My mind races with thoughts that this was all my fault and I should have been able to prevent it. I have had many nightmares about this man assaulting me and feeling so helpless that there was nothing I could do. This has negatively affected my social life. I do not go out with my friends anymore. I don't want to put myself in a position where a man could assault me again. The only men I am comfortable around are my dad, my brother, and my nephew. I don't remember any training from Lyft about what to do if I had a passenger that was assaulting me. When I finally figured out how to report the assault to Lyft, all I received was an email stating that they were very sorry to hear that my passenger made explicit gestures towards me during the ride. I felt no protection from Lyft whatsoever. I don't feel like they care about me at all. It's not easy to talk about what happened to me, but I hope that sharing my story and my trauma will get Lyft to care about the people who use its platform. I'm not a number. I'm a human being. Thank you. This is the end of my statement.
Thank you again. That was Amy Collins, a Lyft driver and sexual assault survivor from Napa, California. And that takes us to our final speaker, Erica Garcia Galicia, a Lyft driver and sexual assault survivor from Wilmington, California. Go ahead, Erica.
Hi, my name is Erica Garcia Galicia, and I'm from Wilmington, California. I'm speaking out today because I feel like I'm just one of many victims out there who have been pushed aside and ignored by Lyft as if our lives don't matter. On February 7th, 2022, I picked up a male passenger who started making disturbing comments about his recent incarceration, schizophrenia diagnosis, and being molested by his therapist. He also explicitly described his genitals. When we arrived to the destination, he refused to get out of the car unless I gave him my number. I politely declined multiple times, and I asked him to exit the vehicle, but he lunged forward and He lunged forward and groped me and pulled my head towards him and tried to kiss me. I sprayed hand sanitizer in his face in an attempt to break free. When he finally got out of the car, I was able to drive away and call 911. I felt violated, scared, defenseless, angry, molested, unsafe, taken advantage of, and just plain awful. Then I broke down and had a massive panic attack. I did file a report that evening, but the passenger actually continued to harass me. When I reported the incident to Lyft, they assured me that the account would be flagged and suspended. But later that night, the guy was able to contact me on my phone. I made another report to Lyft telling them that they had no right to give my personal phone number, especially after he had sexually assaulted me earlier. Lyft never contacted me to see how I was doing or if there was anything they could do. I stopped using Lyft completely after this. I'm so disgusted and disappointed with Lyft. If there's anything that I could tell Lyft, it would be to teach their staff how to deal with survivors of sexual assault. Lyft really needs to make their platform safe so their drivers can feel safe. After the assault, I began to have anxiety and panic attacks. I have trouble sleeping and I've been having nightmares. I can't go to places on my own. I can't be around strangers. And now I have PTSD. I'm no longer the person who loved to see new places or go to new places. I no longer socialize because I feel that there's just many untrustworthy people out there. I'm not me anymore. And I absolutely hate how my life and sense of security was just snatched away from me. And I just want my life back. Lyft needs cameras in the cars and needs to train its staff to know how to deal with survivors of sexual assault. Because I matter, because we all matter. Thank you. And that's the end of my statement.
Thank you. Again, that was Erica Garcia Galicia, a Lyft driver and sexual assault survivor from Wilmington, California. And that takes us to the Q&A portion of our call. If you wish to ask a question, you can use the raise your hand function and your line will be unmuted when it's your turn to ask a question. As a reminder, the Q&A period is for reporters only. If you have any issues with your own audio or the raise hand function, you can use the text-based Q&A box and we'll do our best to get to all the questions. And before we begin, I want to mention that we will have a video recording of this news event available later today online at sexualassaultvictimadvocates.com, along with other media materials. That's sexualassaultvictimadvocates.com, no spaces. Okay, let's go ahead and take our first question. It's going to be from Cade Metz at the New York Times. Please unmute yourself, Cade.
Thanks all of you for sharing these statements. A question for the attorneys behind the complaints. How often has this sort of complaint been filed in the past? What have been the results? And how are these complaints different from those that have come in the past?
Tracy, please remember to unmute yourself. Sorry.
Sorry. Thank you, Kate. This is Tracy Cowan. There's been a number of different complaints that have been filed against Lyft. There's currently a JCCP, which is essentially a coordinated proceeding of claims and complaints that have been filed by passengers who have suffered from sexual assault. There have not been as many, as far as we know, complaints filed by drivers who have been subject to sexual assault, although this is a very common occurrence and we're contacted by drivers in this situation all the time. And we have no way of knowing how many complaints have been filed against Lyft for physical assault because Lyft requires both passengers and drivers to file those actions in arbitration, which is necessarily a private process that is very, very infrequently publicized. So there could be hundreds or thousands of those. We would never know, and we would never know the outcome. But as for the, the sexual assault cases in the JCCP, those are all still ongoing. And there are, many, many, many such complaints.
I'll add to that, and thank you for your question, Cade. How sad that this has happened so many times, that there need to be coordinated proceedings against Lyft for the sexual and physical violence that occurs in Lyft cars. It's an epidemic and it needs to stop. It's unconscionable that Lyft has been aware of this ongoing problem for years and done virtually nothing. Lyft spend massive amounts of money on woke marketing campaigns and lobbying, but it refuses to protect its drivers and passengers. In reality, the thing Lyft is most concerned about protecting is its own profit margins.
Okay, let's go to our next question. It's coming from Francisco Rascon from NBC News. Francisco, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello, good morning. Thank you, everyone. My question is, there is any approach, or there has been any approach to Lyft, and what will be the best outcome from this lawsuit?
Thank you, Francisco. This is Tracy Cowan again. The best outcome from this lawsuit would really be if Lyft took the steps it knows it needs to take to make everyone safe. Lyft knows that it should be doing much more comprehensive background screening on its drivers. It knows that it should actually make sure that the information that those applicants provide to Lyft is accurate, and do biometric fingerprint monitoring to make sure that the background checks are actually accurate, that it does before it signs somebody up to be a driver. And it knows that if it put dash cams in every car, the number and the rate and the severity of violence and sexual assaults in every car would decrease. So the best possible outcome would be for Lyft to actually make these changes that people, both passengers and drivers alike, have been asking for years. And we hope that's what Lyft does.
Thank you. Let's go to our next question. It's coming from Levi Sumagese at MarketWatch. Go ahead, Levi.
Hi, this is Levy from MarketWatch. Thanks for taking my question. I know, I think Stuart mentioned that he was given that Lyft gave $7. I didn't hear about any other compensation for any of the other survivors who spoke today. Has anyone of you gotten any compensation?
You're a little faint. Levy, you're a little faint. Can you speak up a little bit? You're cutting out. Sorry.
It's very faint to me.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm wondering if any other of the survivors has gotten any compensation from Lyft besides Stuart.
Any other of the drivers got compensation from Lyft besides Stuart?
Yes.
I like, okay, I'll take that. Like they told me, when I contact them concerning what happened to me that night from the ER, I was crying, and the guy was like, "Oh, we're gonna put $350 in your account to fix the side mirror," and that was it. That was all they told me, and I was like, "Okay, I'll get back to them," and they never called me again. That was it.
Let's go to our next question. It's coming from Kiet Do from CBS News in the Bay Area. Go ahead and unmute your line.
This message is for the attorneys. Have you thought about financial damages that you would be asking of the company? And if so, roughly what each victim might be getting? It sounds like some cases are more severe. Is there a range that you can enlighten us on?
Thanks for the question, Kit. We have not discussed precise numbers, and in some ways, how do you put a precise number on what all of these people have gone through, right? I am a husband, I'm a father. I cannot imagine my wife or my children having to go through this. And so to Erica, to Amy and Stella, Catherine and Stuart, and all of our other clients, I'm here to say, we're all here to say, this is not your fault. Lyft failed you. And we hope that through your cases and your courage in coming forward with your stories, that this doesn't happen to anybody else. But Lyft needs to act. It needs to act tomorrow. In fact, it should have acted yesterday. It should have acted years ago.
Thank you. Let's go ahead to our next question. It's coming from Kate Chappell, NBC Chicago. Kate, go ahead and unmute your line.
Hi there. Thank you for the question. Mine is for Stella because I am here in Chicago. I'm just wondering if you have any more information on where the attack happened, like if it was in a specific neighborhood. I was going to ask you if Lyft did respond, and you mentioned they offered you compensation. So my questions then are just where was the attack, and also is there anything Lyft would ever do that would make you feel safe enough to drive again from your perspective? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So it happened in the downtown area around East area or East areas, somewhere around there. That's where it happened. So when it happened, I called the police because I already saw I was in trouble. I called the police, but it took forever for them to even come. So before they came, I was already bleeding, you know. I was already bleeding, and the people passing by had to call the police actually with their own phones too, you know. So to cut the whole thing short, I contacted Lyft that night in the ER, and I was crying. And the guy was like, oh, we're going to pay for the side of the mirror. Maybe do you think $350 will be enough to fix that? I mean, I was not in that state of mind thinking about money to fix my car. I was thinking about my own self, and I was crying because I saw the stitches, and the doctor was like, oh, you're going to have some scars in there. I was thinking about my body image, you know, right there. So after that incident, he did not contact me anymore. He did not. I think he sent some kind of email, was like, oh, I think one of them from Lyft, like, you have not driven for some time, what is going on? You know, I did not reply that because nobody even called to be like, okay, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Nothing. So, but I actually contacted them because the police, when I spoke to the investigators, they were like, okay, we want to get a hold of this person, but the only way we can do this is for you to get her information from Lyft. So I actually contacted Lyft, and they told me point blank that they cannot give it to me. I have to get like a court order for them to be able to release it. And I was so sad. That was like the saddest day in my life, because I knew if I was the one that insulted a passenger and caused her to bleed, I would be in jail. Why do I have to like really work so hard to get someone that did this to me? At least if you're not going to help me to do anything else, at least bring to book the person that almost killed me that night. They didn't do that. They just abandoned me like that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go ahead to our next question. It's going to come from Brandy Kellum at CBS News. Brandy, go ahead and unmute your line.
Hi, yes, I hope you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Great. Thank you all for sharing your experiences. And Stella actually started to talk about what my question was. She started to answer what my question was going to be. For any others who had experiences trying to file police reports, I'm just curious about the specific challenges you had in your experience with Lyft that made it difficult to file a police report or have the police follow up on your specific situations.
I can speak a little bit more broadly based on our experience with, we have many clients who have been in this situation. And what we've found in the past and with many of these same clients is that Lyft will not, they have created this policy of their own that they will not release information without a court order or subpoena. And that is essentially just an obstacle, and it really prevents the police from taking swift action. In cases where a sexually violent predator has attacked one of our clients and is on the loose, literally still in the same neighborhood, the police can't act because Lyft won't give them information while the person is still at large and might be able to be contacted or might be able to be caught and put in jail. So that's the real problem, is that Lyft claims that it's cooperating with law enforcement because if you send a court order or a subpoena, they will turn over information, but that's actually just a huge obstacle, particularly when you have, when you have somebody who's at large and might be able to actually be caught by the police. And the fact of the matter is that a lot of places, the police are too, overwhelmed and they have too many cases to be able to follow up on cases that are going to take a whole lot more of, basically administrative hoop jumping to get even the basic information about the suspect. And the other issue that our clients routinely have is that they cannot get the information themselves about their assailant unless, again, they have a subpoena or court order. What that means is that a Lyft driver or passenger has to find an attorney, file a lawsuit, and get legal process before they can even get the basic information to get a protective order, keeping their assailant from contacting them or coming back and harassing them again.
Let me just try to summarize what I heard from Tracy, which is sadly, unfortunately, and shockingly, Lyft is on the side of the perpetrators, not the victims. Lyft needs to stand up with its riders and its drivers and actually support them. This is the time to do it. It should have been done years ago, but let's do it right now. All of us deserve that.
Okay, let's go ahead and take a question from our Q&A box here. Takina Russell is wondering if Takina's from NBC and writes, "Thank you for sharing your stories. Is one of you able to share your story in Spanish for our partners at Telemundo?" And I'm wondering if Erica would be comfortable sharing a little bit about her story in Spanish.
Yeah, I can. Do I just narrate everything in Spanish?
Just try to keep it brief, but yeah, just speak from the heart in Spanish if you can.
Okay. Hola, me llamo Erika García Galicia. Soy chofer para Lyft. Ahora quise hablar con todos ustedes porque pienso que mi vida es importante. Siento que fui una víctima de abuso sexual durante un ride de Lyft. En febrero 7 de 2022, yo recogí a un hombre que empezó a hacer comentarios sobre su esquizofrenia, sobre que estaba encarcelado anteriormente y que fue molestado sexualmente por su terapista. También empezó a describir sus áreas genitales. Cuando llegamos a la locación, a la destinación donde lo tenía yo que dejar, no quiso salirse de mi carro hasta que yo le diera mi número telefónico. No se lo quise dar, múltiples veces yo les dije que no, y fue cuando me empezó a atacar, me empezó a tocar inapropiadamente, jaló mi cabeza hacia la suya, como quererme besar, y fue cuando yo agarré mi spray de sanitario de las manos y le sprayé la cara. Fue como me pudo haber dejado, me dejó, me soltó. Después de eso yo me fui, hablé al 911. Todo esto me hizo sentir muy molesta. Sentí que estaba destrozada. Me sentía yo destrozada, me sentía con miedo, que alguien me había abusado sexualmente, me tocó inapropiadamente, fue lo peor que me había pasado. Me empezó a dar un ataque de pánico y luego sí lo reporté a la policía. pero él siguió molestándome en mi teléfono. Yo lo reporté a Lyft y Lyft me aseguró que la cuenta iba a estar suspendida y que ellos iban a poder, se iban a encargar de todo, pero la persona seguía, de una manera u otra, seguía molestándome en el teléfono. Yo entonces reporté otra vez a Lyft que ellos no tenían ningún derecho de darle mi información personal y que me seguía contactando por teléfono. Ellos no hicieron nada para parar que esta persona me siguiera molestando. Siento yo que Lyft pudo haber hecho más. Ellos nunca me contactaron para ver si yo estaba bien, si podrían hacer algo para mí. Y después de eso, yo nada más me sentí molesta. Tengo ansiedad, me dan ataques de pánico, no puedo dormir. Tengo pesadillas, no puedo estar junto a personas extrañas. Muchas cosas me recuerdan, hay cosas que me recuerdan de la situación. No soy la misma, no puedo estar con mis amigos en lugares nuevos. Todo mi seguridad se fue, ya no está, no es lo mismo. Mi seguridad, mi bienestar, todo fue diferente. Yo pienso que Lyft necesita instalar y ser cámaras en los carros y que entrenen a su personal para poder lidiar con los sobrevivientes de acoso sexual. Y pienso que yo soy importante, así como todos los que han reportado sus casos también son importantes. Y es lo único que puedo decir. Gracias.
Thank you. All right, just as a reminder, you can use the raise your hand function to get in line to ask a question. We're going to try to get to all of them. We are getting a little short on time. You can use the Q&A box if you have any issues with your audio or the raise your hand function. Let's go ahead and take Stephen Miller, WBBN News Radio Chicago. Stephen, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yes, hi, thanks. And thank you all for sharing your stories. A couple things, and since I'm from Chicago, I specifically would have a couple of questions for Stella Grant. Stella, I think in the beginning, you said that the the passenger you picked up was not the person you thought it was going to be. Is there something Lyft could have done to prevent that? And the other part of my question is, was this person who attacked you ever brought to justice?
Thank you so much for your question. So when I get the ride, I don't know, I was not expecting to not meet the person that placed the ride to be at the location. So I don't know, I only know that I'm going to pick this rider that has ordered the ride. So until I got to the location that night, I found out that she was not the one that ordered for the ride, because I asked her what's her name on the app. She called another name for me, but actually I called the number on the ride and she said, "Oh, you are picking up my friend." That was the name, you know, and she was already insulting me because I was trying to confirm the ride and she was using the F word on me. So like because she was drunk already and she didn't know what she was doing, because she was even staggering getting into the car. So she was never brought to book because the investigators really wanted to do something for me, but Lyft could not give it to them. And Lyft wanted me to get like a court order. I mean, I was still struggling to pay my bills from the hospital. I was not feeling good. I was having anxiety. I was in a very bad place, and they also wanted me to come up with a fee for a lawyer to go to get like a subpoena for me to be able to get the information I need to bring my abuser to justice. it was just a bad and terrible situation for me that time. I was like, at least if you can't do anything for me, at least just help me. I told them this, just help me, because she's going to do it to somebody else again. But they did not do that. They did not. They didn't even follow through with me. They didn't even care to know how I felt after that. They did not.
And if I could add to just to answer a question that you had added to that is, what could Lyft do to prevent this? Lyft has a policy that allows its account holders to order rides for other people, just like what happened in Stella's case. And it knows that this happens. It does not require the riders to provide any information about who they are actually putting in the car. So what Lyft could do to change this is change that policy and make sure that there is some at least basic information about every rider that gets in a Lyft car. And otherwise, it could just provide dash cams, and that would provide video evidence.
And let me add to this, is Adam Wolf, that part of the reason that we're filing so many of these cases today is to highlight this issue so that there can be a change. This is the first time that this many cases were filed at the same time across the country on behalf of both riders and drivers, as well as sexual assault survivors and victims of physical assault. This is momentous, a momentous day against Lyft, but it should be a momentous day at the end that hopefully supports all of us.
All right, let's take a question from the Q&A box. It's coming from Jessica Brzezinski at Fast Company. She asks, is there a clause in drivers' contracts that require mandatory arbitration?
I can take that question. Yes, there is a clause in both rider and passenger contracts that requires mandatory arbitration. Lyft has agreed to waive this for cases involving sexual assault, but every other dispute between a rider and a driver has to go to arbitration.
And let's take another from the Q&A box. This is from Ian Cull. Ian is at NBC, I believe, in the Bay Area. He asks, I'd like to ask the same question of Amy Collins about telling us where this happened in Napa, California, if the person was ever brought to justice. That's Ian Cull, NBC Bay Area News.
Hi there. So this happened at Stag's Leap. I picked this man up at Stag's Leap Winery, which is right a little past Yountville. And I had to take him all the way down to Embassy Suites in Napa off of California Boulevard. And no, this man was never brought to justice. The only thing I ever got from Lyft was, we're sorry this happened to you. And I was a new Lyft driver at the time, and I had no idea my rights about this. Like, I had no idea I could even stop the car, try to get this man off me. I thought I was going to lose my job with Lyft. So I was, I didn't know what to do. And no, he was never brought to justice. I never even got his last name. I only know his first name. I don't know anything about him. I tried to find him. So through a Facebook page for Lyft drivers, but nobody recognized the man. So no, there was no justice.
Okay, let's go to a follow-up question from Francisco Rascon at NBC News. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Francisco.
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, my question is kind of the same for Caterina Rasta. If you can explain where her attack happens here in Phoenix, and if the person was responsible for what he did. Thank you.
So my attack happened on 28th Street in the Indian School, right in front of the complex office. And no, he was not brought to justice. I was already feeling powerless, and once I contacted Lyft, they treated me like it was an everyday thing. They're like, we'll look into it and we'll deactivate his account if necessary. They didn't give me his name. They didn't give me any other info. They said, we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Never got back to me. And I basically thought, wow, so this is allowed to happen? And it just broke my heart, broke my spirit. I still have ongoing depression about it. And luckily I called Piper Wolf and they got my voice back. And I'm hoping it will bring justice to anyone who has done it to others and my aggressor.
Catherine, thank you for that. And thank you for all that you've said here. To answer your question, is this allowed to happen? This should not happen. This shouldn't have happened to you. This shouldn't have happened to anybody on this. Lyft allowed it to happen, and that's not okay.
Here's another question from the Q&A box for the attorneys. Do we know who is more likely to be a victim of violence during a Lyft ride, men or women?
Thank you for the question. It would be really nice to know, but Lyft has been exceedingly untransparent about what is happening on Lyft rides. If Lyft provided this information, we would love to give it to you. We are contacted by both men and women frequently who have been victims of both physical and sexual assaults.
Thank you. We want to make sure that you know where to get more information following today's news conference. As we said, we're going to have materials online as well as a recording of the news event. It'll be at sexualassaultvictimadvocates.com. If you have questions, need more info, want to connect with any of the speakers that you've heard from today, you can contact Max Carlin at 703-276-3255. Again, that's 703-276-3255. We thank you for joining this news event held by the law firm Piper Wolf, Carr, Kane, Conway, and Wise. And that will conclude today's news event. Thank you very much for joining.